All right, welcome back to another episode of Investment Realtors Podcast.
Hello, hello.
Go to Realtors Podcast. Today we've gotten a question from a longtime subscriber and viewer. They kind of just wanted us to take them down what the difference is on a deposit versus down payments, kind of what's the similarities, if there are any, and just how it works. So if you would let us know or kind of explain to us how we would explain to a buyer, so that way our viewers can be informed on what the difference is.
Okay, a very good question by the longtime subscriber and viewer.
Yeah.
So probably the easiest way to break down the difference between a deposit and a down payment is when you have to send the money in.
Okay.
So a deposit is sent in usually with the offer or a day after acceptance within 24 hours.
Okay.
And it's kind of a sign of good faith and a hold
Mhm.
on the property. You send it in. It's usually anywhere between 2 to 5% of the purchase price,
Okay.
preferably, because obviously the greater the deposit, the more serious the buyer looks. Like if a house is $1 million and you're putting in a $10,000 deposit, it might raise a couple questions when it comes to closing, because it's a lot easier to walk away from 10,000 as opposed to, let's say, 50,000.
Fair.
Right? So that's probably the biggest difference between it. One similarity I would say is that your deposit is part of your down payment.
Yes.
So when buyers come to us and they're like, "Oh, I need to bring you a down payment with the offer, like my 20%." It's like, no. It's not the full 20% down payment. It's a sign of good faith that you are going to close. You're going to keep your word on this contract. You're not going to back out for a silly reason. Obviously, there is some reasons to back out. Maybe you could go through some of them after.
Sure.
But basically, yeah, it's about anywhere from 2 to 5%, even 1%.
Okay.
Sign of good faith with the offer. And usually it's bank draft, certified check, wire transfer. It's got to be cash deposit. They got to have proof of where it came from.
Yep.
The account number. There's a lot of things we do to check it. But yeah, for the most part, it's part of your down payment. But yes, there are some reasons people walk away. What are some of the reasons you've seen people walk away from deposits?
I guess the biggest thing, like you said, just on closing, maybe they haven't secured funding and now they're kind of really in a rock and a hard place. So like you mentioned, the lower the deposit, I mean, it's not really too much skin off their back. It's a lot easier to walk away from 10,000 than it is 100,000. And we have seen that where people have kind of left their finances to the last moment and they're not able to close, or it would cost them significantly more than they thought. So they just kind of walk away. Now, just because a seller does keep the deposit, if, for example, the seller then sells the house for less than what they sold it to you, then they're going to probably take you to small claims court and go after you for the difference plus damages. Just to touch on what you were saying about the deposit. So a deposit, for example, you would give it within 24 hours or herewith.
Yeah.
And what would happen is, let's say that offer is contingent on the buyer having finance for 5 days. If for whatever reason they can't get finance in the 5 days and they need to walk away, they would then be able to get their deposit back as long as it's within the 5 days without being penalized.
Yes, if it's written properly in the so it's very important. We say it all the time, for your buyer's agent or whichever agent's representing you to put in the proper wording on conditions.
Absolutely.
What's our famous condition that we always put in? What's the one line?
To the buyer's sole and absolute discretion.
Perfect.
And that would be one of the ways you wouldn't lose the deposit, like we mentioned. So 5 days, on the 4th day you can't get the finance, you would then ask for a mutual release. You'd get your deposit back. Usually it's within a week or two from the listing brokerage. On closing, I mean, if you can't close, that is a world of pain. So that's why it's definitely important you have your finance in order and you make sure that it is something that is suitable for you and you're not going to be choking. I guess then the other thing that we could talk on would be on the closing day. A lot of times we're asked, well, how do you know when the house is closed? If you want to explain kind of what happens in that case, where a buyer and the seller figure out, okay, what time do I need to be out by?
Okay. Well, most offices, lawyers' offices, they want it done by 5 is the time we always see. So Obviously, it's a lot quicker on the buying side because they're the ones delivering the funds.
Mhm.
So they just got to make sure the funds are all delivered,
Mhm.
right? Then the seller's lawyer is the one that kind of disperses the mortgage, land transfer, large value transfer system
Yep.
of the funds away from the mortgage, or if there's no mortgage, it's just from person to person. And usually, what we like to do, we leave the key in the lockbox.
Yeah.
So the lawyer just gives a code for the lockbox to the new buyers.
Mhm.
Within the day, the buyers go, they open it up, they take the key. We call and say, hey, we're just going to come pick up our lockbox the
Yeah.
next day.
Exactly.
And that's basically it. We've seen some delayed closings
Yeah.
past 5, but it's very rare. It's very rare. It's probably just like certain circumstances that it happens. But we've also seen it as early as noon,
Yeah.
where if things are easy and there's not much money moving around and questions coming up. So anywhere between, I would say, noon and 5, expected to do it.
Mhm.
If there is an extension, if they do need an extension, a lot of the times it's negotiated lawyer to lawyer,
That's what I was just about to ask
and
you.
there's penalties.
Yeah, depending.
We've personally been through situations where properties have delayed closing for, let's say, a week.
Yeah.
And those buyers, if it's their fault, if it's the buyer's fault, they actually have to pay compensation on
Yeah.
the time that they've missed, moving costs, either like mortgage or bridge costs,
Mhm.
any costs accumulated by the seller because of the buyer's fault
Mhm. Absolutely.
is accumulated in there, and
Yeah.
then they're charged.
And it's not like there's anything prorated or kind of like one set formula. It's a case by case. So we've, in our personal experience, they came to an agreement of, okay, every day you don't close, it's X amount.
Yes.
And then on top of that, there's property taxes, there's bills that they
Yeah.
prorate because
Yeah.
they have to carry it. So, I mean, nobody wants to be in a breach of the contract because
you don't.
you really lose in that situation. And then what we usually tell our sellers, like, don't expect the house to close at 5. Try and be out of there by, let's say, 8, 9
Yeah.
a.m. because we have seen some earlier closings. They are rare, but they do happen. And I mean, you shouldn't be on closing day at 4 o'clock still loading up the cube van.
No, please don't.
Because then you're one of those. And then if it does close at noon, well, that's technically not your house now. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's a common courtesy thing. I mean, if you're not in your house and it's been snowing, no, it's not on your buyer to now shovel 8 feet of snow. I mean,
That's another thing.
be courteous. Leave the house how you want to receive the house. Clean your snow. Leave your bathrooms clean. I mean, obviously everybody's going to clean different, as we know.
Yeah.
But have some mutual respect and some, class. Make sure the house is presentable.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that would be our biggest takeaway on like
Yeah.
the closings and
For
the
closing.
deposit versus the down payment.
Yeah.
We've been actually a lot of people reaching out saying they enjoy the videos, but they wanted kind of more specific, like kind of question and answer, which is what we're doing today.
Yeah. Nice targeted questions. And
Targeted
answers.
questions. These are targeted answers. So, I mean, let us know if this video is too short. I mean, a lot of people do have a lot going on, and we've come to that realization. You can't just sit through these, and it's a lot of fluff, like what I'm doing right now.
We're cutting down the fluff.
So, we will definitely be back with another video next week.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet. This is a double whammy this week. I guess the snow's helped us with that. And
drive safe out there, guys.
take it easy, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Goodbye.